This video is brought to you by Dashlane. Secure your online life for free in the link down below. It is an accepted nature of computing that the average minimum requirements of new software rise over time as the amount of computing power you can get per dollar increases. Anyone stuck on the low end for any specific reason has likely been frustrated with this, as the internet's hype cycle moves to heavier and heavier games. The other part of this process that genuinely frustrates me is that selected multiplayer games that manage the colossal task of creating a stable community that can last many years, thus making them lifestyle games, need to go through a constant, very subtle upgrading process which slowly but surely raises the minimum requirements of the game. This is why CSGO will hardly work as well on its original minimum requirements, or why Fortnite is so hard to run on 4 gigs when it was once so easy. This process makes sense when you think about the way the game market works, but can be a bit frustrating when you think of how it can unintentionally leave behind a lot of players in developing countries where consoles are way too expensive and PC components are harder to find. So it would be interesting if there was some lifestyle game that in a way went backwards on that process. Huh, well, there you go. PlayerUnknown's Battleground is going to make a heck of a future topic for gaming historians. It has gone through so many trials and tribulations in its life as a lifestyle game that it is worth—
Wait, PUBG? A lifestyle game? Don't you mean that game that used to be super popular until Fortnite killed it and then Apex killed Fortnite and—
Listen, you little frame drop, just because you do not see a game in your home screen or at the top of Twitch does not mean it is dead. We live in an algorithmically driven internet. Everyone gets a different YouTube home screen, and after the hype is gone, pretty much every long-lasting game stabilizes. The key to survivability is not how big the hype spike is, but how stable the long tail of long-term communities maintained. Fortnite is still pretty popular, but not worldwide, and in many countries where Fortnite has not danced its way to the top, PUBG is a tremendous force to be reckoned with, either economically or socially, which explains why it keeps getting banned in so many places. Since a lot of these countries suffer from a weaker electronics and PC components market, that means that gamers are even more strongly running into the issues of PUBG's proportionally high system requirements, especially compared to other lifestyle games. While it has improved a bit, or so I have heard, some of the corporate overlords took a more radical approach. Chinese megacorp Tencent, who owns a significant part of Bluehole, which makes PUBG, and a significant part of Epic, which makes Fortnite. Yeah, that's right, no matter who loses that fight, Tencent always wins. They took PUBG, adapted it for mobile, and made it free to play. I have talked about this game at length and about how well optimized it is, easily running on many old and mid-end phones, and I also recently talked about yet another version of this game, PUBG Mobile Lite, which basically took PUBG Mobile, made it even lighter and made it run on phones with 1 gig of RAM or less, which is currently being tested on 2 different countries. But this is all on mobile, and it does seem like the PC version continues to lead the way in terms of revenue. So, not content with this, there is yet another version of PUBG floating around, PUBG Lite. I feel terrible for the army of people that must be maintaining this codebase. PUBG Lite, which was initially called Project Thai and only released in Thailand, is a PC version of the game meant for low-end PCs with some absurdly low PC requirements. It is also free to play. How can you try it? Chances are, you can't. Not initially, at least. If you were wondering who in the world is this for, at the time of writing, this game has only been released and region-locked to the countries on screen. So it does seem that Tencent is targeting the Asian market, and in that process creating one of the very few examples of reversing the trend of lifestyle games becoming heavier. A new trend that I kinda hope catches on, because I would love to see something like Overwatch Lite. Anyway, how the heck did they pull this off? From what I can tell, PUBG Lite is actually PUBG Mobile recompiled for PC. When Android Mobile released, there were plenty of people, myself included, that noticed that you could get a relatively weaker PC to emulate PUBG Mobile rather than play full-fat PUBG. Although that will incur in some tremendous CPU overhead, as most emulation does. So it seems that they got PUBG Mobile, with all its performance optimizations, recompiled and reported it back to PC to become PUBG Lite. Seriously, if I were Unreal, I would fill my booth at GDC with PUBG. This is a prime example of the multi-platform abilities of this freaking engine. So, can you play it if you're outside the coverage area? Surprisingly, you can easily create an account at accounts.pubg.com and download the game at light.pubg.com, but once downloaded and installed, to actually play it, you're going to need a VPN that connects to one of the supported countries. You're probably familiar with VPNs, virtual private networks. They encrypt your network connectivity to prevent your internet provider or tech-savvy intruders, some public Wi-Fi's, being able to snoop on your communications, with the added benefit that your public IP is set by the endpoint of the VPN, so you can appear like you are in a different country. I will be using Dashlane as my VPN, which I have a premium subscription of, and also use to secure my passwords, which is becoming growingly important. I will be connecting to their Singapore server and changing my Windows time zone to Singapore. The game will not validate otherwise. While I expected my ping to be terrible, for the moment it seems the region validation happens at the start of every match, so once you are in the plane, you can disconnect. That way you only have to deal with the ping issues of the distance and not the ping issues of the VPN. Now, the background footage that you're seeing right now is from my preferred test PC, the $55 Athlon 200GE APU with its integrated GPU, and if you have noticed, it is straight up overpowered for this thing, which is nuts. I wanted to see how it will do on a device that can really never run regular PUBG. So I'm using this guy. This is a GPD Pocket 1. It has its own review video in the corner. This tiny laptop that I often carry with me is powered by a quad-core Intel Atom X7 CPU. That is okay in terms of performance, pretty good considering how little power it uses, but far from what is needed for a recently released 3D game, especially when you consider all it has for a GPU is an integrated Intel HD graphics, and on the size of this device, that is all very terminally limited. The setting screens for PUBG Lite is very similar to its big PC cousin, with the same 70% internal resolution limit, and that is not going to cut it. Thankfully, the configuration files are similarly structured to the full game as well, located on the local app data Shadow Tracker extra folder. Full location on screen right now. The main file is called GameUserSettings.ini. Sadly, when they block all the textures and LED tweaks from the main PUBG game, they seem to have done the same here, but you can still lower the internal render resolution under the in-game's 70% limit by changing these two lines. I set both to 30, which represent 30%, and 720p, and got to testing the two maps available. Ignoring the ultra-low resolution, it looks like in terms of textures and LOD, it seems the game already applies a lot of the stuff that you could load via configuration file on Fall PUBG years ago. The grass is reduced to this flat plane and trees are rendered on really low LOD values. Since the target user of this game cares more about performance than fidelity, it makes sense, but I can't help but wish regular PUBG also included this option. In terms of performance, the result was frankly better than I expected. Most of the time the actual FPS was floating somewhere around 30 to 40 FPS, which is definitely double what I was expecting, and within playable levels. There are instances of slowdowns, mainly where a new part of the gigantic map is loaded, and you can absolutely feel this when driving any vehicle, especially if you're in squad mode and putting extra string on your PC by tracking your allies. But rarely will you see this on foot on a regular match. You might also notice this at the lobby when all the players are squeezed together in the same space, but that rarely can be recreated in actual gameplay. Now, I had to drop the resolution to frankly ridiculous levels for this laptop, which transforms that into a problem since unlike Fortnite and Overwatch, the silhouettes of this game are not particularly good, which makes it very hard to distinguish enemies at that distance. But this is an extreme case. Chances are you might have something not as limited as this, which can allow you to increase the internal resolution to 50 or more. If you're okay on that field, keep in mind that you need to be on the supported countries or you will need a VPN and you will have to deal with all the ping related issues on playing on a server that is far away from you. But if that does not stop you, may I recommend Dashlane, this video's sponsor? In general, Dashlane is a security suite that tracks your accounts, creates unique passwords, and auto-logs you into websites. This is all saved on an encrypted database that you, and only you, have the master password of, so even if Dashlane gets hacked, you're safe. The password keeping functionality is free, but there's a premium option that includes some nifty extra features like background sync to several devices and the aforementioned VPN, which secures your connections and allows you to bypass regional locks like the ones in PUBG Lite. My personal favorite prompt function, and at this point the main reason I pay for it, is that you can set up alerts in case there's major password leaks on one of your accounts. On a previous video I talked about how Dashlane notified me that my Facebook password had leaked, and in the time since, my separate Instagram password leaked as well because there's no end to this nightmare. But I managed to solve that before it was too late. That is 2 major LowSpecGamer account crises prevented by something that is less than 40 euros a month, and the first 200 people that use the code LowSpecGamer or the link in the description will get 10% off their annual subscription. Thank you to them for being longtime supporters of this channel, and you for watching.